How old is your baby?
Well, now he's 1.5, but he was 6 months old.
6 months old?
Yes.
Okay. Did you do any research before you...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So I had a very negative experience with water when I was younger. It was very traumatizing. And so when I first had Sterling, I knew immediately that I wanted to put him in swim lessons early so that he wouldn't have the same kind of experience that I did. And so very immediately after having him, I started doing research, and I found out that you can start putting your kid into swim lessons starting at like 6 months old. And so I found Eleanor's classes, and
how did you find her classes?
Online.
Okay.
Yes. So I found she has great reviews. She boasts this amazing percentage rate of success. And so I gave her a call because, again, I feel like I have a special case because of my experience with water. And I kind of talked to her. I walked her through what I was worried about in terms of how I felt. I didn't want Sterling to have the same experience that I did, and I was concerned that certain teaching methods would give him some sort of experience like that. So I talked to her about it.
How do you think they teach a 6-month-old to swim? How did you think they would teach a 6-month-old to swim?
I was just hoping
it's going to be pretty
like
instinctive, right? Because it's got to be, because the 6-month-old doesn't speak, right?
I know that's one method, yes, of course. And
what's another method besides instinct? I mean,
well, I was hoping for something that was a little bit more more based on like comfort and maybe a little bit more like safety rather than instinctively like.
All right, so how much were the classes?
The classes were $480.
Okay, and that was for 12 classes?
Yes.
All right, so you take your baby, Sterling, to the class. Did you know any of the other mothers who were in the class?
No.
All right, and tell me about the experience the first day.
The first day was very simple. It was just simply Eleanor was in the water. She had some assistants and some volunteers, and she had the babies in the water. And
how many babies, by the way?
There were 5.
Okay.
Yes, and the 5 babies were in the water, and she was playing music and just doing some games and kind of floating them around, just kind of getting them comfortable with the water, and that was the first couple of classes.
Okay, so you were fine with that?
Yes, I was fine.
Okay, when did something happen that made you feel uncomfortable?
The second week, so the 4th class.
Okay.
She was she had reached the point where they were comfortable in the water, and so she was kind of moving onward in the training, and with very little warning, I just see my baby being blown in the face and then dunked underwater for multiple seconds, just holding him. So I obviously, because of my anxiety around water, I freaked out and I ran to the side of the pool. I just wanted to make sure that Sterling was okay, because seeing my baby completely submerged was not something that I was expecting, and it wasn't something.
Hold on.
It was not something I was expecting.
How much research did you do?
I did enough. I did research, and I talked to Eleanor about it.
Okay, but you didn't know that the baby would be dunked?
I did not expect it to be as abrupt. It was very fast, and it was long.
You mean abrupt for you or abrupt for the baby?
It was abrupt. It was abrupt for the baby.
For you or
for the baby?
Well, no, see, it's always going to be abrupt for the baby, right? Like, the baby doesn't, it's like, all right, baby, we're going to dunk you now. The baby doesn't understand, so it's going to be abrupt. It might have been too abrupt for you, but...
It was abrupt for both of us, and I was not prepared for that.
So what happened? What'd you do?
I freaked out. I ran to the side of the pool. I was screaming, and
you were screaming. What were you screaming?
I was just screaming Sterling's name. I wanted to make sure he was okay.
How long was Sterling underwater?
A couple of seconds.
Okay, how long was Sterling underwater, Ms. Lewis?
I would say 3-4 seconds max.
Okay, and what was her reaction?
One like I've never seen from a parent before. She went hysterical. She went so hysterical that the other parents got hysterical because they probably thought her baby was drowning or something. And most of the parents come, they relax a little bit because they trust me. And then she starts freaking out, and the babies that are in the water start crying. It was a mess. So what did you do? I asked her to just please calm down because she was making everybody nervous.
Okay. Did you make her leave, or did you ask her to leave?
No, I didn't make her leave.
Did she leave, though?
She did leave, yes.
Okay. So you left. Why did you leave?
I didn't leave the 4th class. I left the 5th class. So the 4th class was the first time that she dunked Sterling, and I freaked out. And she asked me to be quiet and go back to where I was sitting, where she had all the parents observing, and I complied. I did.
Okay.
I went back, I sat there, and then Wednesday, I came in. I went up to Eleanor and I explained that I was uncomfortable with this method that she was using.
What method did you want her to use?
I wanted
You
to
don't have the answer because you're not a swim instructor.
Actually, the ideal age to start swimming lessons for babies is from 1 to 4 years of age. And at this age, you can actually start teaching them some swimming techniques. While if you take the baby to a swimming lesson at about 4 or 6 months of age, it's more of a bonding experience, given that it's a child-parent class, or baby gets accustomed to the water. And I took my children to swimming lessons, and we still go. And I believe my oldest started going when he was around 3, and my youngest about 1.5. While the 3-year-old was getting the group lessons, there were only a few kids that the coach could control, while the youngest at 1.5, she was giving private swimming lessons. That's something that I noticed in this particular case when the plaintiff mentioned that there were volunteers in the water and there were about 5 other babies with her baby. I am not sure how you can teach a baby to swim when you have 5 other babies floating around you have to pay your attention to. To me, it has to be a private lesson, but that's just my experience. Or if we talk about baby parent swimming lessons, then yes, absolutely. It's a bonding experience for you and your baby to be in the water together where you can hold your baby and control what's going on that way. Let's go back into the courtroom.
Honestly, the most minimum amount of research, you would have realized that this is exactly what's done. This is not an uncommon... You didn't invent this, did you?
No.
No. This is exactly how you teach an infant to swim, because you can't explain, I'm going to dunk you now, to the infant. So you go... Because their instinct when you blow on the face is to do what?
Is to hold their breath, yes.
And then you want the baby to feel what holding the breath for 2 or 3 seconds or however long. What's typically when the baby goes down the first time, how many seconds?
I'm going to say it's not more than 3. You literally just dunk them so that they're submerged.
And then
bring
lift
them back up.
So tell me what happens in the 5th class. You tell her, I don't like your teaching method. I'd rather you, well, I don't have no answer. I don't know what to say. I just don't like what you're saying. You know, that's kind of, you know.
I explained my concerns, yes.
Okay.
And
the concern, though, that you should have is that you are freaking your kid out. That's the concern, because you're so freaked out about the water that you're actually instilling that in your kid. You had all the right moves at the beginning, like picking a swim instructor and trying to teach your child to swim at 6 months. All that is wonderful, just in case anything ever happens. So that was all good, but then you're not letting her do what she needs to do. And honestly, if you Google this at all, you know, you'll see that this is what's done. So then tell me what happens in the 5th one. You tell her you don't want her to do that. What does she tell you?
she didn't tell me anything. We had a brief conversation where I explained it. She kind of said, okay. And then she went back to the class and she started doing the same thing with Sterling. And I got anxious again. I got anxiety again. I went to the side of the pool and she asked me and Sterling to leave this time because the parents were getting freaked out and the babies were getting freaked out. And
well, did any of the other parents say anything to you?
They didn't say anything, but they were looking at me. They gave me dirty looks.
Like they gave you the evil eye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course they did. You sound like a crazy person running around and screaming just because you had some bad experience with water when you were a child. And now I feel like instead of protecting your baby, you're creating that same experience in his life by stressing out the baby, other babies in the water, the coach, other parents, everyone around you because of your issues. Do you guys think that the mother was right to be concerned about the swimming lessons and the methods that were being used in the class, or do you think she exaggerated a little bit? Let's go back.
You've come to court and you're suing not just for the amount that you paid for swim lessons, of which your child took 4.5 or 5, 4.5, and you're also suing for $50 for an ear, because your child got an ear infection. Tell me about that.
Yes. So after the 5th class, I was driving home and Sterling was super upset. He was crying and screaming, and he was like that the entire night. He kept me and my husband up all night. And so I went to the doctor the next day and found out he had an ear infection. And I have no reason, there's no other thing that would have given him an ear infection. So I know it came from her pool.
Are you a first-time mother?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a million things that could give you an ear infection. It probably was the pool, but maybe the pool, you know, like, you know, I mean, that's she didn't steal your child and put your child in a pool. You knew the child was going in a pool, so why would she be responsible for that?
Because she was dunking him underwater.
Oh, my darling Miss Cooper. God bless you. I think that maybe you're not ready for your child to be dunked. So maybe waiting like till 1.5 years might be a good idea for you, or a year or something.
My son does swim now.
Okay. And your son is how old? How old's your son now?
1.5.
Okay. And how did your son learn how to swim?
I found a different instructor, and she had a much calmer method.
Okay. What was her calm method? What'd she do?
She floated them along.
And oh yeah, I know. Floating them along is the first few days. What did she do? Because if your child falls in a pool, floating them along is not going to be their instinct. So what did she do after floating them along?
Well, I did wait a little bit. The experience with Eleanor was a little bit.
So she dunked your child just like Eleanor did, right?
She did it in a different method, though, and she was very.
How is it different? What did she do? Just
She
show
was-
me what she
was
did.
much more
First, show
involved.
me what Eleanor did with your hands. Like, pretend. Okay, now show me what the other lady did.
It's going to look the same.
It is.
But I was in.
It
I
is,
was,
darling.
this-
It's going to
this
look exactly the
experience-
same. You know what the difference is going to be, Ms. Cooper? You. The dunking was exactly the same. She didn't do anything wrong. You ended up offering her some money back for the other classes. You should have taken what was behind the door number 1, honey, because I need to see your contract. It depends on what the contract says. Is there a contract here I can look at?
No, I do not have a contract at the parents' side, no.
All right. So you offered to pay her back how much?
$280.
Okay. And that was the unused portion?
Yes.
Because it was how many classes? It was
12.
right.
She
Got
attended
it.
5.
Can I just say, though, as a businesswoman, to protect yourself, because you count on these tuitions to run your business. Most people in your position have a contract that will actually say there are no refunds. And then they can only get a refund if there's something you did wrong. You do not have that in your contract, so I am going to order you to return the unused portion to her because you're the one who asked her to leave. But you would have had real good reason to ask her to leave when she's yelling at you and agitating everyone else. If you spell that out in the contract, if you say parents cannot scream, parents cannot blah, 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 if you do, you'll be terminated and there are no refunds. If you spell out your expectations, people know how to react. But in any event, I am going to order you to return $280, verdict for the plaintiff. Good luck, everybody.
It is such a great idea to teach your child to swim. And of course, especially if you have pool in the house, it's a must. Your children should learn how to behave in the water to reduce drowning as soon as they possibly can. Take them to swimming lessons. And that's what I did in my household. And of course, water safety is something that we discuss and we don't take lightly. On the other hand, it's such a nice recreational sport for overall body development. The lungs are being developed, your muscle structure is being developed, your cognitive functions are being developed. It's just an amazing sport to participate in. However, I do believe mother had some unrealistic expectations regarding her 6-month-old baby and what the lesson should look like. And of course, you cannot really reason with a 6-month-old explaining what's about to happen and how they should swim and what they should do. So the mother should maybe do a little bit more of a research so she comes prepared to what about to happen. And if this format of a class is not something you're comfortable with, I would probably recommend to find a parent-baby class where you're with your baby in the water together, where you control the process and you float the baby. And if there is a dunking under the water happening, then you're the one who controls that under the supervision of a teacher. What did you guys think about this case? Do you think the judgment was fair and she deserves the money back? Please put it in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching.